The Electron That Makes the Change, a documentary by Ana Gabriella and Sarah. This documentary will help you understand what carbon dating is and how it impacted history.
Carbon-14 is an isotope of carbon. It's radioactive and unstable, while carbon-12 and carbon-13 are stable. Because it is unstable, it decays. Carbon-12 and carbon-13 are stable, so they don't decay. Because it decays, it's used for carbon dating, but only up to 50,000 years.
When neutrons collide with nitrogen-14, it becomes radioactive C14. Plants and animals absorb it naturally, and when they die, C14 slowly decays because it is radioactive. When carbon-14 decays and loses one of its neutrons, it's called beta decay.
Carbon dating is basically measuring the amount of carbon-14 left over in an organic material after a certain period of time under 50,000 years. There are two types of carbon dating, AMS and radiometric. In AMS, the sample is reduced down to graphite and then put through a machine called the accelerator, such as this one. Carbon dating isn't a set method yet. It was first invented by Dr. Willard F. Libby, shown here, around 1949.
These previous lab pictures were from Beta Analytic Incorporated, a carbon dating company in Miami we went to. Mr. Ron Hatfield, the lab manager of Beta Analytic, gave us a tour. Ron Hatfield also answered a couple of questions for us.
How has all this science affected history, you ask? Well, you've heard of Ötzi the Iceman, right? The one found in the Alps between Italy and Austria? He was carbon dated. So were the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Shroud of Turin. But before we could get to almost exactly how old these things were, we went through a period where scientists used a system called relative dating. Relative dating is the scientists' best guess on how old something really was. They looked at the tools and hunting and fighting weapons that the ancient humans used. As you might guess, it wasn't always that accurate. One of the most famous examples of carbon dating is Ötzi the Iceman. To make a brief summary, two German tourists found him while hiking in the Alps. They thought there had been a murder and called the police. It turned out that he is now 5,300 years old. There was a huge dispute between Italian and Austrian authorities on whose the mummy was. Now, Ötzi lies on permanent display in the South Tyrol Museum of Archaeology in Bolzano, Italy. Carbon dating is not affected by changes in temperature, humidity, or pressure, so the age of Ötzi wasn't altered because of different types of weather. Another example of a common artifact is the Shroud of Turin. The shroud was believed to be the cloth that covered Jesus during his burial, but carbon dating proved it to have been made during the 1400s. However, some religious groups believe that when the samples were removed from the cloth, the wrong threads were taken. Supposedly, these had been re-sewn into the cloth to help preserve it later in history. Some scientists are asking for the other threads, but the church refused to give it to him. The debate of whether or not it is the real thing is still going on today.
One other example that was a surprising find was the Dead Sea Scrolls. They were a group of jars that contained an ancient version of the Old Testament. There were more than scrolls in the jars, though. Things like linen cloth that were used as coverings for the scrolls and coins that were minted in around 10 CE were found. The linen was made from flaxseed, so it was easy to carbon date. It was dated in the 1st century CE, the time that it was thought to be harvested. The jars containing the scrolls were dated to 30 BCE, and the writing was done around 100 BCE, 600 years before the earliest known copy in Hebrew.
Have you ever heard of Lucy or Artie? They're ancient relatives of humans. Lucy was named after the Beatles' song Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds because it was playing on Donald Johanson, the man who discovered her radio at the time. Artie is just short for Ardipithecus ramicus, her scientific name. Lucy and Artie weren't carbon dated, they were argon dated. However, carbon dating has inspired scientists to think outside the box and create other forms of dating. These include argon dating, potassium argon dating, and plutonium dating.
By discovering carbon dating, Willard F. Libby advanced us from relative dating to more exact methods so we could discover our real past. It is a true innovation in history.